Chapter 1. Another busy lunch break had come for the students at the Arabashi School for Girls. It was a time to not only fill their hungry stomachs, but a time for the girls to put aside scholarly subjects and discuss topics that were of far greater importance. As was customary, Sayuri and her friends were eating lunch in room 3B. From the third story, one could see the entire schoolyard. And it was from that vantage point that Sayuri's closest friend, Hana, liked to stare down at the other students and see them as nothing more than insignificant little bugs. Had Hana not hand-picked her to be her friend, Sayuri surely would never have chosen to be friends with such a girl. For Hana was as cruel and mean-spirited as anyone Sayuri had ever had the misfortune of knowing. And it was only the fact that Sayuri's father was a prominent businessman that made her desirable to Hana. Rounding out the clique were Aika and Nami. Nothing particularly stood out about the two other than the fact that they also came from money. And what Hana especially liked about them was their constant desire to please her. Had Sayuri been blessed with more confidence, she surely would have broken free from the group. But she feared Hana would have her blacklisted and left without friends. And that would have made her just like Shizuko. "Hey, look at Shizuko," said Aika. "She's asleep again." Shizuko was well known as one of the least popular girls in school, and she had once again fallen asleep at her desk. Shizuko kept mostly to herself, rarely ever saying more than a few words unless spoken to first. And for some reason, that made Hana loathe her. "What a lazy dog," said Nami. But Sayuri knew the reason behind Shizuko's constant school-time naps. She had once overheard Shizuko while she was taking a call from her employer. It was then when it became known to Sayuri that Shizuko was always exhausted at school because she worked nights cleaning office buildings. "I found out the other day that her father works at the same hospital as mine," said Hana, who was staring coldly at the students in the schoolyard. "Is he a doctor?" asked Nami. Hana immediately began laughing. "Oh, you were serious?" she asked. "Of course not. He's just the janitor. I saw him eating at a restaurant one day with Shizuko. I knew he looked familiar. Then I remembered where I had seen him. I had seen him taking the garbage out of my father's office. I bet one day his daughter will be doing the same for me. It would only make sense, seeing as she's just a piece of trash herself." Sayuri would never admit it to the others, but when she was younger, she and Shizuko were very close friends. But Shizuko's father moved the family when he was offered a very high-paying job. Years later, Shizuko returned and was transferred to Sayuri's school. But she had made no attempt to rekindle the friendship. Sayuri knew it was because of the company she now kept. Anyone familiar with Hana would have to assume that anyone associated with her was just as cruel and just as vindictive. "I hate that girl," said Hana, now burning a hole through Shizuko with her stare. "Just knowing that she exists offends me. The world would be a better place if people like her just disappeared. Wouldn't you agree, Sayuri-chan?" It wasn't immediate, but Sayuri eventually answered the question. Yes," she replied, her voice little more than a whisper. Like anyone who knew Hana like she did, Sayuri couldn't help but live in constant fear of her best friend. Chapter 2. When the final classes of the day had finished, students hurried off to get a start on the rest of their day. Like most days, Shizuko lingered. She stayed behind for the simple fact that she didn't want to get caught in the rush of students. That way, she could avoid those awkward situations where she might bump into someone and have to utter an apology. But unlike most days, where Sayuri and her friends were among the first to make their escape, the four had stayed behind. They gave Shizuko quite the scare when they jumped out at her from around the corner of the hallway. "Hey, Shizuko, do you have plans?" asked Nami. "You want to go to the beach with us?" asked Aika. "I don't know if I should," replied Shizuko. "I'm not supposed to go anywhere after school. I'm supposed to go straight home." "But the beach is so close," said Nami. "You'll be home in no time," added Aika. Hana placed her hand on Shizuko's shoulder. "Don't you want to be our friend?" she asked, trying her best to sound as if the words coming out of her mouth had been formed out of sincerity and not from malice. Shizuko looked hesitant to answer, as she took a moment to look at all the smiling faces around her. Oddly, the only face that wasn't smiling was the one most familiar to her. Sayuri looked so miserable, and when Shizuko's eyes met hers, Sayuri looked away. Even so, seeing Sayuri's face was enough to make Shizuko smile. "Okay," she replied. The girls wasted no time in catching the next bus headed for the beach. Hana, Nami, and Aika shared a seat at the front, while Sayuri and Shizuko shared one in the back. "Since transferring to your school, I was wondering when we would get a chance to hang out again," said Shizuko, who wore a smile that looked so strangely out of place on her. "I've been wanting to talk to you, but you're always with your friends, so I didn't want to bother you. But now we get to be friends again." "Why did you come back?" asked Sayuri. "After my mom died, my dad and I didn't have a choice. My dad's salary wasn't enough to cover all of the medical bills. Even after selling our house, we still couldn't get out of debt. We could barely afford the rent on a one-bedroom apartment. So my aunt invited us to come back here so we could live with her." "I didn't know your mom had died," said Sayuri. "I'm sorry." Even from the back of the bus, Sayuri and Shizuko could hear the wild laughter coming from the others. Had Shizuko been able to look away from Sayuri, she surely would have seen that the laughter would come only after the others had taken peeks back at them. Sayuri had noticed the peeks, though, and she was well aware that the laughter was all at Shizuko's expense. "It's not so bad," said Shizuko. "At our apartment, I could only stare out the window, but at my aunt's house, I can lie on the grass and stare at the sky at night. I try to see how many stars I can count. I know it sounds dumb. That's why I only count them on the nights where there aren't that many. Remember how we used to do that when we were young? No matter how many I counted, you were always able to count more." "That's because I lied," replied Sayuri. "I would always let you go first. That way I could just make up a bigger number." "So that's how you did it." Shizuko then let out a small laugh, prompting Sayuri to do the same. It was happening gradually, but Sayuri was growing comfortable with Shizuko, making it feel as if their time apart had never taken place. Sure that the others were going to play a prank on Shizuko, Sayuri decided she would tell her friend before the others had the chance to make a fool out of her. "Hey, Shizuko," said Sayuri. Before Sayuri could finish what she had to say, Hana popped up from behind the seat in front of them. "Hey, why aren't you two sitting up front with the rest of us?" she asked. "You're making us feel left out." "We were just talking," replied Sayuri, a tremble in her voice. "We're trying to figure out what we're going to eat after we go to the beach," said Hana. "Nami wants donburi. But Aika says she won't eat donburi because her mom made her eat it last night. And I don't want donburi either. So what do you two want?" "Can we have udon?" asked Shizuko. "Udon?" asked Hana. "How about you, Sayuri-chan? What do you want?" "I don't know," replied Sayuri. "You can't even choose what you want to eat?" asked Hana. "I thought a choice like that would be an easy one for you to make." A short time later, the girls arrived at the beach. Nami and Aika wasted no time in sprinting toward the sand, looking like a couple of children as they did so. "Hey, get back here," demanded Hana. "We didn't come here for that." Both girls were smiling half-heartedly when they returned to Hana's side. It was evident that having been yelled at had frightened them. Rather than frolicking by the surf, the girls led Shizuko down a narrow path just off to the side of the beach. They had insisted Shizuko cover her eyes with her hand to keep from spoiling the surprise that awaited her. To keep the girl from falling in her blind state, Nami and Aika guided her by the shoulders the whole way. "Where are we going?" asked Shizuko. "It's a secret," replied Nami. "So no peeking," added Aika. "Stop right there," said Hana, when Nami and Aika had led Shizuko to the perfect spot. Shizuko was now standing only steps away from the edge of a cliff, overlooking a grouping of jagged rocks below. "What are you doing?" Sayuri asked Hana, when she found just how dangerous a prank the others had decided to pull on Shizuko. "You can look now," said Hana. When Shizuko removed her hand from her eyes, she nearly lost her balance when she found herself near a fall that would most certainly lead to an untimely death. Before Shizuko could turn around or begin backing away from the cliff, Hana spoke up in a most unpleasant tone. "Hey, Shizuko-chan," she yelled, stopping the girl. "Don't turn around. You don't want to know what'll happen if you do." "What is this?" asked Shizuko. "You think you're so high and mighty, don't you?" asked Hana. "What makes you think you're better than us? Your dad's just a janitor." "Your breath smells like a dog's," exclaimed Nami. "And your boobs are small," exclaimed Aika. "Why are you doing this?" asked Shizuko. "Please stop this," said Sayuri, her voice barely loud enough for Hana to hear, despite the fact that the two were standing next to each other. "What are you talking about?" asked Hana. "You knew we were going to do this." "No, I didn't." "Dog breath!" Nami and Aika shouted in unison. Nami then picked up a rock and threw it at Shizuko, narrowly missing hitting her in the foot. Aika then threw a rock that hit Shizuko in the foot, nearly making the poor girl lose her balance. "Stupid, what are you doing?" whispered Nami. "It was an accident," Aika whispered back. "Sayuri-chan," whispered a sobbing Shizuko. "Why?" "Stop it," exclaimed Sayuri, knocking the rocks out of Nami and Aika's hands. "Whose side are you on?" asked Nami. "Yeah, we agreed that we were going to do this to her," said Aika. "We're all in this together. So stop acting so high and mighty." "No, I never wanted to do this," said Sayuri. "I'm nothing like you." While the three argued and even began shoving, Hana picked up a rock and threw it at Shizuko, hitting her in the back of the head. The impact dazed the girl so badly that she lost her balance and fell over the edge of the cliff. Seeing this, everyone came to an immediate halt. It felt as if the world had stopped just for them and because of what they had done. "She lost her balance," said Hana. "I didn't have anything to do with it." The girls ever so slowly made their way to the edge of the cliff. Sprawled out on the now bloody rocks below was Shizuko's lifeless body. "Shizuko!" screamed Sayuri. Unable to stomach such a sight, Nami ran off, but she was forced to bring her retreat to an abrupt halt when she began vomiting violently. Hana also ran from the edge, but she had only run off to collect Shizuko's book bag. When she returned, Hana attempted to throw it off the cliff, but Sayuri snatched the bag away from her before she could. "What the hell are you doing?" asked Hana. "We have to throw it over, so it looks like an accident. If she doesn't have her bag, the police will get suspicious." "No, I won't let you, exclaimed Sayuri, holding the bag close to her chest as if it was her most cherished possession. We need to get out of here, said Aika, who was tending to Nami. If somebody sees us, they'll know we had something to do with this. Hana stood chest to chest with Sayuri. If anybody finds out about you having that bag, we're all going to be executed, she said. Do you understand? I'm not going to die because of someone like her. Hoping to establish an alibi, the girls hurried back to town and stopped in at the nearest restaurant. Hana insisted the girls eat, despite their unsettled stomachs, and act as if nothing out of the ordinary had taken place. As far as the other customers and staff were concerned, the four were just regular teenage girls spending a night out. I don't want Donburi, said Nami, who was fighting a losing battle to keep her tears at bay. I just want to go home. Shut your mouth already, said Hana. You haven't stopped whining since we got here. Do you want everyone to see you crying? If they see you, they'll know something's wrong. So shut up and eat. You're the one that wanted Donburi, remember? You're always complaining that we never do what you want. Well, now we're doing something that you want. So why the hell are you complaining, huh? Hana had scolded Nami so loudly that some of the other customers couldn't help but look in their direction. Sorry, said Hana, a polite smile on her face. Or maybe we can go back and I'll make you eat all that stuff you threw up, said Hana, this time much quieter. So help me if they pull your DNA out of it. It's okay, said Aika. I kicked dirt over it. An ambulance sped by the restaurant. Its lights were flashing and its siren was blaring. The girls were noticeably startled by it. Acting as if the ambulance had done nothing to bother her, Hana began eating. Though she was ruthless, her hands were shaking visibly as she did so. As she had been doing since the group arrived at the restaurant, Sayuri kept her gaze on the floor. This prompted Hana to cast a most unpleasant glare at her. After their impromptu night out, the girls went their separate ways. Sayuri went straight to her room after making it home. What had happened to Shizuko played itself out over and over in Sayuri's head. It wasn't so much the blood on the rocks that disturbed her, so nor was it the awkward positioning of Shizuko's mangled limbs. It was her eyes. Every time that scene replayed in her mind, Sayuri couldn't help but feel as if Shizuko was staring directly at her, making it seem as if the girl who had lost her life wanted to know why Sayuri would play a part in such a thing. Having made sure her door was locked, Sayuri opened Shizuko's bag and began looking through it. At first glance, there looked to be nothing out of the ordinary inside. There was nothing but books and other school supplies. Sticking out of a book was a piece of paper. There was nothing odd about a piece of paper placed inside a book, but something compelled Sayuri to take it out. When she found what it was, a stabbing pain immediately inflicted itself upon the pit of Sayuri's stomach. What she had found was a picture she had drawn years ago when she and Shizuko were in elementary school. It was of the two of them in a grassy field under a starry sky. Sayuri had given it to Shizuko after telling her she hoped the two would be friends forever. Shizuko, whispered a now sobbing Sayuri. It was immediately after calling her friend's name when a floorboard creaked. Sayuri was hesitant to turn around, thinking her mother had entered through a door that hadn't been properly locked. If that was so, then she surely would have heard Sayuri speak the name that would soon be referenced numerous times in newspapers and on news broadcasts. Mustering the courage, Sayuri turned around, but found no one there. Chapter 3. During a break between classes the next day, Hana took Nami and Aika to the roof of the school. It was there where the three would find Sayuri, who had said some very troubling things to Nami earlier that day. "Hey," shouted Hana, "what's this I hear about you wanting to confess?" "I think it might be the best thing for us to do," replied Sayuri. "If we tell the police it was an accident, they'll go easy on us. The fact that we're all minors might keep us from getting too harsh a sentence. You think if you go to the police, they'll go easy on you just because you made it easy for them to solve the case?" asked Hana. "What makes you think you're better than the rest of us? You'll get into just as much trouble as us." "Is that what you want, Sayuri-chan?" asked Nami. "To get us in trouble?" "I don't know what makes you think you'll be in less trouble than the rest of us," said Hana. "If anything, you'll be in more trouble." "What do you mean?" asked Sayuri. "Think about it. There's 3 of us and only 1 of you. All we have to do is tell the police that it was all your idea to cover things up. We wanted to confess, but you wouldn't let us. You threatened us. You told us your father had powerful connections, and he would make sure the 3 of us kept our mouths shut." "You wouldn't," said Sayuri. "You want to find out?" asked Hana. "Look at it this way," said Aika. "If one of us talks to the police, then we'll all get in trouble. But if none of us talks, then none of us will get in trouble. Think about what I said the next time you get an idea like going to the police," said Hana. And with that, she, Nami, and Aika took their leave. After the unfortunate meeting, Sayuri went to the bathroom to splash some cold water on her face. So upset was she over what Hana had told her that she could barely keep the water cupped in her shaking hands from spilling out. The cool water had helped calm Sayuri down, but her troubles would return in abundance when she looked into the mirror and found Shizuko standing behind her. Turning quickly, Sayuri found there was no one in the bathroom with her. She once again looked into the mirror, but the only thing she found was her panicked reflection staring back at her. Wanting to put recent events out of mind, Hana took Nami and Aika out for some much-needed amusement after school. The local karaoke box never failed to lift the girls' spirits when they were in need of cheering up. "How come we didn't bring Sayuri with us?" asked Aika as she browsed through the song catalog. "She likes karaoke more than anyone." "I already told you," replied Hana. "She's not here because she's pissing me off. What more do I need to say? So, does that mean she's not our friend anymore?" "That's up to her," said Hana. Despite the lethargic state Nami was in, Hana tried to hand her the microphone. "Hey, it's your turn," she told her. "I don't feel like it," replied Nami. "What's wrong with you? Still feeling bad about what we did?" Nami gave no reply. "Well, you'd better stop acting like that, because if anyone notices anything different about any of us, then we're as good as dead. Understand?" "I'll go next," said Aika, taking the microphone from Hana. "Don't worry about Nami. She's just moody. In a few days she'll start acting like her old self." "She had better," said Hana. Unable to get the image of Shizuko out of her head, Sayuri hurried home and took to her computer, hoping to find some answers. Most of the sites she found had no pertinent information that could help her. But there was one website that provided something that troubled her. "A spirit that is still struggling with love, hate, or sorrow may be unable to pass on," read Sayuri. "If these emotions are strong enough, the spirit can return to the world of the living. Spirits have been known to come back to haunt their tormentors. Some have even been known to bring death to those who wronged them." Not wanting to read anymore, Sayuri turned off her computer. "That's just folklore," she said. Those are just stories they tell to scare little kids. In the reflection of her monitor, Sayuri thought she caught a glimpse of Shizuko. When she turned to look, Sayuri found no one else in her room. Hana and Aika were having boisterous fun at karaoke. They were singing as happily as two people who hadn't a care in the world. Nami, on the other hand, was unable to partake in the festivities. Her mood was one that had remained unchanged since the death she and the others had caused. "What song should we sing next?" asked Aika. "Pick something slow," said Hana. "I want to feel like I'm in love." A horrible scratching sound began blaring from the speakers. "What's happening?" asked Hana. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," replied Aika, who frantically began pushing buttons in hopes of making the horrible noise go away. The one thing she did accomplish, however, was making the main light go out and replacing it with flashing ones. "How does that help us?" barked Hana. Nami's eyes nearly doubled in size when she found Shizuko standing behind her friends. The recently departed girl looked no worse for wear after having fallen off a cliff. Nami screamed a bone-chilling scream. It was immediately after that when the horrible sound came to an end and the lights returned to normal. "What's going on?" asked Hana. "Why'd you scream?" Shizuko was no longer in the room, but that wasn't enough to calm Nami, who ran from the room without explaining herself. Without having anyone push any buttons, another song began playing. It was a cheery number that took on an eerie feeling with what had just happened. "I told you to pick something slow," said Hana. Chapter 4. There was a buzz at school the next day. Everyone was talking about recent stories in local newspapers and on morning news shows about the discovery of Shizuko's body. Police had given very little information, so students were curious to know if the death was a suicide, an accident, or possibly murder. Not more than an hour into instruction, Sayuri, Hana, Nami, and Aika were pulled from their classes. A pair of detectives had come to their school, and they were looking for answers that would lead them to who was responsible for Shizuko's death. Hana was first to be questioned. "How close were you to this Shizuko girl?" asked Detective Yamamoto. "I wasn't close to her at all," replied a defiant Hana. "I didn't even know her. I have enough friends. I don't need any more than what I already have." "Really? Then how do you explain why the janitor told us he saw you and your friends leaving school with her?" "I don't know what you're talking about," replied Hana. "We didn't go anywhere with her. She might have been leaving school at the same time as us, but that doesn't mean we were hanging out with her. Besides, what does the janitor know? He's so old he can barely see. But he can see well enough to get excited whenever a pretty girl walks by him. It's him you should be investigating, not me." "He did say something about not having his glasses on when he saw the girls," said Detective Tamaki. "He might have been mistaken." "You know, I have a daughter about your age," said Yamamoto. "She has a good life. She's pretty, has lots of friends, and gets good grades in school. No one has a bad thing to say about her." "I don't know what I would do if I found out someone was bullying her." He then leaned in toward Hana. "Could you imagine what I would do?" The smell of cigarettes hit Hana's nose like a slap in the face. "From what I've been told, this Shizuko girl wasn't very popular. That probably would have made her an easy target for bullies." "This is harassment," exclaimed Hana. "You can't blame this on me. I didn't do anything. If you keep up with this line of questioning, I'll tell my dad to hire a lawyer. He'll sue you and the city for everything you're worth." "This one has a lot of fire," said Yamamoto. "Please understand where we're coming from," said Tamaki. We have to cover all our bases to make sure we don't miss anything. We're not saying you or your friends had anything to do with this. We just want to know if you know anything." "None of us knows anything," said Hana. "When you ask the others, they'll tell you the same. So you shouldn't even bother wasting your breath. She probably just killed herself. You said it yourself. She didn't have any friends." "Suicide?" asked Yamamoto. "We've been seeing a lot of those lately. People are always looking for the easy way out." He then pulled out a cigarette and lit it. "Smoking isn't allowed on school grounds," said Hana. After taking a puff, Yamamoto grinned, showing his teeth that had been yellowed from years of his bad habit. "We'll just let this be our little secret, okay?" he said. "I'm sure a girl like you is good at keeping secrets." After school, the girls met up in an empty classroom. "So everyone's stuck with the story," said Hana, staring out the window. "I told you there was nothing they could do to us if we all just stuck together." "Is it over?" asked Nami. "Are the police done with us?" "It's never over with them. So be careful what you say. They could have microphones hidden everywhere. I'm sure they'll wiretap our phones. And if you ever see someone watching you from the shadows, it's probably them." "I don't want to live like that," said Nami. "Well, that's too bad," said Hana. "That's what happens when you're a criminal." "Stop trying to scare her," said Sayuri. "She's been through enough." "Don't worry about it, Nami-chan," said Aika. "The worst is over. There's nothing that they can do to us. So cheer up, okay?" "Really?" asked Nami. Aika gave her friend a nod and a smile. "I don't know about the rest of you, but all this talk has made me hungry," said Hana. "Aika, treat me to sushi." When making the request, Hana had used a much friendlier tone. It was something that neither Aika nor Nami had ever picked up on. But Sayuri always noticed how friendly Hana became when she wanted something. "Okay," replied Aika. "Are you coming, Nami?" asked Hana. Though she had posed the question to Nami, Hana had been looking at Sayuri when she asked it. "Yeah, I'm coming," replied Nami, a faint smile upon her face. "Can you wait for me out front? I have something I need to do first." "Okay, but don't be too long," said Aika. When Hana and Aika were out of the room, Nami asked a very startling question. "Sayuri-chan, do you believe after a person dies, they might be able to come back?" Sayuri was taken aback by what had just been asked. "Why?" she asked. "Did you see something?" When Nami failed to make eye contact, Sayuri knew something was wrong. "What did you see? Did you see her? Did you see Shizuko? Tell me if you did." Nami's cell phone rang. "Yes," she answered. "Hey, Nami, if you're not coming, then we're going without you," said Hana. "I'll be right there," said Nami, before having Hana abruptly hang up on her. "I have to go now, Sayuri-chan." "Wait, what were you going to tell me?" There was a very poor excuse for a smile upon Nami's face. "It was nothing," she replied. "Don't worry about it, okay? Like Aika-chan said, the worst is over." And with that, Nami quickly gathered her things and took her leave. "Nami," said Sayuri, "I saw her too." Unfortunately for Sayuri, Nami was already out of the room by the time she had made her confession. Chapter 5. After having had sushi with her friends, Nami went home and straight to her room. It was late, and she needed to get started on her homework. Her parents had left for a late dinner shortly after she had come home, leaving Nami all alone in a disturbingly dark house. The only light to be found was coming from her small desktop lamp. "I don't get this at all," said Nami, thumbing through her textbook. "Why do we have to learn this stuff anyway? We're never going to use it." Nami's cell phone began ringing. "Hello?" she answered. "Nami, it's me," said Sayuri. "Oh, Sayuri-chan, what's up? Need help on your homework?" I was thinking about what you told me at school today, when you asked me about ghosts. We didn't get the chance to talk." "Forget about that," said Nami. "I was just feeling a little stressed. With everything that's happened recently, my mind was starting to play tricks on me." "No, Nami, listen. It's okay. Let's not talk about this anymore. I just want to move on." "But, hey, you want to go to the game center tomorrow? I know Hana might be mad at you, but I'll talk to her. I think she's just in one of her moods. Nami, please listen to me." Even through her cell phone, Sayuri could hear distinctly the sound of footsteps on the other end of the line. Nami had a wood floor, which made it easy to hear when someone was walking across the room. "Nami, is someone there with you?" asked Sayuri. As well as Sayuri had heard the footsteps, they were far more noticeable to Nami. "Hey, Nami-chan," said a girl's voice that was deathly familiar to her. This was followed by a hand coming to a rest on her shoulder. "Don't turn around." Sayuri had heard what had been said on her cell phone, and the next thing she heard was a scream that sent a chill down her spine. "Nami-chan!" screamed Sayuri. "Nami-chan!" The next day, Detectives Yamamoto and Tamaki paid another visit to the school. They were met with even more defiance when they interviewed Hana. "Another girl from your school has met her fate," said Yamamoto. He then took a long drag on his cigarette as Hana burned her glare into him. Tamaki opened a window to allow the smoke to escape. "I don't know if you should be referring to her death in that way," he said. "If things keep going this way, you won't have any friends left." "I already told you," said Hana. "Shizuko wasn't my friend." "No, but Nami was. And now she's dead. That can't be a coincidence. Maybe a guilty conscience left her with no other choice. Or maybe someone was trying to keep her quiet because of the information she had." "Just come out and say it," said Hana. "You think I had something to do with this too. You have some nerve. One of my best friends is dead, and you're pointing the finger at me." Though she was acting as if she was the victim, Hana's acting skills were less than impressive. It was easy to tell that she was far from disheartened over what had happened to Nami than she was letting on. "Then why is she dead? It doesn't make sense. Her death has to have something to do with what happened to that Shizuko girl." "It didn't," said Hana, her demeanor calmed. "It had nothing to do with it." "How do you figure?" asked Tamaki. "Nami was having an affair with a married man," said Hana. The usually talkative Yamamoto was at a rare loss for words after hearing something so shocking about a high school girl. "He said he was going to leave his wife and take her away," explained Hana. "But he lied. He said he didn't want to shame his wife's family, so he had to stay with her. I guess Nami couldn't take it, and that's why she killed herself." Yamamoto and Tamaki looked at one another, as if hoping the other had something to say in response to what they had just been told. When the interview was over, Hana left the cramped office that was becoming far too familiar for her liking. "Do you believe her story about the affair?" asked Tamaki. "Who knows?" said Yamamoto, lighting up another cigarette. "These days, anything is possible. But I know that girl didn't commit suicide." "How do you know that?" "Because when they found her body, most of her bones were broken. It was as if she had jumped off the roof of her house. But they found her slumped over her desk. That hardly seems like a long enough fall to cause such injuries." "I heard one of the girl's friends was the one who found her." She claims she called her and didn't get an answer, so she went to her house, and that's when she found her. But when we checked the dead girl's phone, we found that the two had been talking before we got the call about the death. So she was lying. Do you think she had something to do with the murder? Who's to say this was a murder? Asked Yamamoto. That girl was hiding something, but I know she had nothing to do with this. Are we going to question her again? There's no need. She won't have the answers we're looking for. How can you be so sure? Asked Tamaki. Call it a gut feeling, but I think the truth will come out with time. Will I ever become as cavalier as you? Yamamoto began laughing. It's called detective's intuition, and you still have a long way to go before you learn. On her way home from school, Hana received a call from Aika. The news of Nami's passing was too much for her to bear, so she skipped school. Hello, answered Hana. I was thinking I would go see Sayuri to check on how she's doing, said Aika. She hasn't been answering her phone. I have a lot to do, replied Hana. I won't be able to go with you. Did you hear about Sayuri being the one who found Nami's body? I can only imagine how she must have felt having seen that. Maybe she's the one who killed her. You shouldn't say things like that. Like I said, I'm really busy. Call me back later. And with that, Hana abruptly hung up on Aika. Why does everyone always bother me when I want to be left alone? Whispered Hana. Little did Hana know that Shizuko was standing directly behind her. Sensing that someone was near, Hana spun around, but there was no one there. Having been allowed entry by Sayuri's mother, Aika made her way into her friend's room. Sayuri was lying in bed, hidden by the covers. Sayuri-chan, said Aika, taking a seat on the bed. How are you feeling? I heard you didn't go to school today. Neither did I. Do you know when you're going back? Not only did Sayuri not reply, she failed to make any movement whatsoever. As much as I think about what happened to Nami, I can't make myself cry, said Aika. What kind of person can't cry when one of their closest friends dies? Have I become that used to death because of what happened? So, what does that make me? Some kind of a monster? You're not a monster, said Sayuri. Then what am I? I'm supposed to be like you, in bed, and shut away from the rest of the world. It's because of what I did, isn't it? God is punishing me. Nami was so upset over the part she played in Shizuko's death that she killed herself. As bad as it may sound, I wish I could feel the same. That way I could kill myself too. Aika-chan, said Sayuri, rolling the covers off to face her friend. If I tell you something that sounds strange, do you promise to listen to what I have to say, no matter how much you might not believe me? Of course I'll listen. I've seen Shizuko. What? Gasped Aika. What are you talking about? I'm not the only one who saw her. Nami saw her too. She never came out and said it because she was afraid to. But I know she saw her. I know it. This is just too much, said Aika, getting off Sayuri's bed. She then made her way to her desk. How can I believe that you've been seeing someone who isn't alive? That would mean that you saw a ghost, and ghosts aren't real. I told you what I had to say was strange, but I think it was Shizuko that killed Nami. I was on the phone with her when it happened. I didn't tell the police because they wouldn't have believed me, but I heard Shizuko's voice. She told Nami not to turn around. Nami killed herself because she couldn't handle the guilt over what we had done, said Aika. That's what happened. No, you have to believe me. If what I'm saying is true, then none of us are safe. Any one of us could be next to die. The words that were coming out of Sayuri's mouth were falling upon deaf ears, as Aika's full attention had become fixated on the picture lying on Sayuri's desk that had been found in Shizuko's bag. "This is a cute picture," said Aika, who was clearly trying to change the subject. "Did you draw it?" "Yes, I drew it a long time ago." When Aika flipped the picture over, it was discovered who the girls in the picture were. A note had been scribbled that read, "Sayuri and Shizuko. Do you think there's something wrong with me, believing a ghost is responsible for what happened to Nami?" asked Sayuri. "No," replied Aika. "In times like these, people can get so stressed that they start seeing things that aren't really there." She then looked at her watch. I was supposed to meet Hana, but I'll see you later, okay?" As Aika was making her way out of the room, Sayuri grabbed her by the wrist, preventing her from leaving. "Please, at least remember what I told you." As Sayuri spoke, she kept her head lowered to prevent Aika from seeing that she was crying. "You don't have to believe me, but you need to at least remember and look out for yourself." Chapter 6. Aika had cut her trip to Sayuri's house short to meet with Hana. Though she had told Sayuri she had plans to see Hana, Aika had no such meeting planned. But the revelation that Sayuri and Shizuko knew one another was information Aika knew Hana had to hear. The two agreed on the phone to meet at a local coffee shop to talk. "So, Sayuri was friends with Shizuko when the two were young," said Hana, stirring her milkshake with her straw. "This is information we can use." "How?" asked Aika. "I can tell that Sayuri is getting ready to do something stupid. She might even be thinking about going to the police. But if we get that picture and show it to the police, that could get them to stop harassing us and focus only on Sayuri. That shows that Sayuri had a connection to Shizuko, while the two of us have no direct link to her. The police? I don't think we should get them involved." "It can't be helped," said Hana. "They've been sticking their noses in our business ever since that day. This is the only way to get them to leave the two of us alone." "But what if the police don't believe us? There's no way to prove the picture is even real. They could accuse us of forging it. We would start to look even more guilty than before if we try to make Sayuri look like the only one responsible." "All right. Then what do you suggest we do?" "If we can get that picture, then we can threaten to go to the police if Sayuri decides to confess," said Aika. "I know it sounds harsh, but we have to do whatever it takes to ensure that none of us takes the blame for what happened." "How do you intend we get the picture?" asked Hana. "Let's wait until she comes back to school. When I saw the picture, it was with her schoolwork. I'm sure she'll bring it to school with her. Then it's settled. We'll use the picture to blackmail Sayuri into keeping her mouth shut. It's such a good plan that I should have come up with it myself." Hana then took a bite of her piece of cake. "Chocolate tastes even better when you know you're going to live a long life safe and free the way God intended." Hana-chan, do you really think Nami killed herself?" "Of course she did," replied Hana. "You saw how strange she was acting. She couldn't handle the guilt. But the same thing won't happen to us, understand? You just have to keep telling yourself that we didn't do anything wrong." "Why do you ask? Do you think something else happened that night?" Aika shook her head. "No," she replied. A few days later, Sayuri returned to school. There were more than a few strange looks from classmates, as well as whispers behind her back. Everyone had heard how she was the one who had discovered Nami's body, and most thought that was more than a bit suspicious. During a break from class, Aika invited Sayuri to the roof to finish the talk they started a few days earlier. "You know," said Aika, clinging tightly to the fence surrounding the perimeter of the roof, "I've been getting these strange feelings lately. It almost feels like someone is watching me. But when I turn around, there's no one there. Call it a guilty conscience, or even paranoia, but no matter how hard I try, this feeling won't go away. Have you been thinking about confessing? Asked Sayuri. Never. Have you thought about telling the police? The lack of an answer was nearly as damaging as answering yes. Aika took Sayuri by the shoulders. You can't think about doing that. Not at a time like this. The police don't have any evidence that we had anything to do with what happened to Shizuko. With time, this will all just go away. As Aika and Sayuri conversed on the roof, Hana began a mad rummage through Sayuri's bag. It took no time for her to find what it was for which she was searching. How cute, she said, a false smile upon her face. Those two must have been good friends. I wonder how little Shizuko would have felt if she had known what Sayuri was going to do to her once they grew up. You have to promise me that you won't confess what we did, said Aika. No matter how much you think it will free your soul from guilt, only bad things will happen. What happened to Nami, that won't happen to the rest of us. But Sayuri wanted to tell Aika that what happened to Nami wasn't the result of a guilty conscience, but the result of a vengeful spirit. But believing that her theory that it was something supernatural that was to blame would only be dismissed as nonsense, Sayuri chose to keep what she had to say to herself. Hana arrived shortly thereafter. I thought I'd find you two up here, she said, sounding as if she hadn't a care in the world. Hey, Sayuri-chan, guess what I found? Let me give you a hint. It's something that's going to make sure none of us gets into trouble. She then pulled out the picture of Sayuri and Shizuko from behind her back. What are you doing with that? Asked Sayuri, who made a desperate lunge to get the picture back. Unfortunately, she was unable to take it. She then turned to Aika. Did you tell her about it? Why? It was for your own good, Sayuri-chan, said Aika. Me and Hana thought you might be getting ready to go to the police, so we had to do something to keep you from doing it. Bingo, said Hana. Aika told me about the little talk you two had the other day. She told me how you and Shizuko used to be the best of friends. So if you're still thinking about going to the police, then we'll show them this picture. It proves that you knew Shizuko. All me and Aika have to do is tell the truth. We didn't know her at all. There won't be anything the police can do. They'll have to clear us, while you take all the blame. I wonder what they'll come up with as motive. Maybe unrequited love gone wrong. Don't feel bad, Sayuri-chan, said Aika. Now, we can finally move on. I can't believe you told her, said Sayuri. You shouldn't keep secrets, said Hana. It isn't very nice. A good friend should always tell you everything, just like Aika did. You told her everything, asked Sayuri. Even about the ghost? Aika's eyes bulged. Ghost? Asked Hana. What are you talking about? After not receiving an answer from Sayuri, Hana turned to Aika. What is she talking about? Aika was just as hesitant as Sayuri was to answer such a question. Answer me. Sayuri thinks... She thinks maybe it was Shizuko's ghost that killed Nami. Not suicide, like everyone thinks, replied Aika. Are you serious? Asked Hana, who immediately began laughing. You can't be. That's the stupidest. Hana stopped herself before finishing. The delight she had just been showing was quickly wiped away. You would have to be crazy to think such a thing. Is that it? Do you want us to think you're crazy? Rather than look into Hana's angry eyes, Sayuri turned her gaze to the ground. If the police ever figure out what happened that day, you're going to stick to your story that Shizuko came back to seek revenge. They'll end up locking you away in an asylum, while me and Aika get a death sentence. You're going to be laughing while me and Aika hang. That's not true, said Sayuri. Hey Aika, Sayuri's plan is a pretty good one, don't you think? Maybe we should follow her lead. Hana then pointed at Sayuri. Look out, there's a ghost behind you. Whatever you do, don't turn around or you'll end up like Nami. Shut up, exclaimed Sayuri, lunging at Hana. Sidestepping the foolhardy attack, Hana tripped Sayuri, sending her crashing to the ground. Do you really want to do this with me? Asked Hana. Even if there was a ghost, it would be the least of your problems. I'm the one you should be afraid of. Come on, Hana-chan. Let's go, said Aika. You had better take what I said seriously, said Hana. Chapter 7. As it did at such an hour, darkness had taken hold of the city. Aika had just wrapped up another session at cram school. But she had stayed longer than usual on this day, going over notes with classmates. On the walk home, she decided it would be a good idea to call her mother and tell her that she would be home late. Mom, why won't you pick up? Asked Aika, as she received nothing more than numerous rings from her home phone. You're so lazy. The ringing then came to a sudden halt as Aika lost reception on her cell phone. Lifting her phone into the air, Aika tried in vain to regain a signal. Stupid phone. Just when I need you the most, you go out on me. On Aika's walks home, there was usually some amount of activity going on. But being out much later than usual, there was nary another soul to be found. The stores she always passed by were closed, and with their lights turned off, it created more than enough places for someone to hide away from human eyes. Unable to shake the feeling that someone was watching her, Aika timidly looked behind her. There was just enough illumination from a nearby streetlight to expose someone lurking in the shadows. The figure was making no movement whatsoever. All the shadowy stranger did was stare at Aika. This prompted Aika to quicken her pace. Though she could hear only her own footsteps, Aika was sure that whoever it was who was watching her was now following her. Aika ran as fast as she could and didn't stop until her body had completely run out of energy. It took nearly every ounce of courage she had within her, but Aika eventually looked back to see if her pursuer was still behind her. To her relief, she found there was no one to be found. As she was catching her breath, Aika caught a glimpse of herself in a traffic mirror. Standing behind Aika in the reflection was Shizuko. Having just been running for her life, and now seeing someone whom she thought to be dead standing right behind her proved too much for Aika to handle. She lost consciousness and collapsed on the street. Aika didn't wake until the next morning. She had been found by a good Samaritan and taken to a nearby hospital. She was questioned by police after waking, and in the afternoon she was paid a visit by Hana. Rather than starting the visit off by asking how Aika was doing, Hana wanted to know how the visit from the detectives went. They didn't send those two idiots again, did they? She asked, as if they weren't already suspicious enough. No, replied Aika. They sent a couple of female detectives. They think this was a case of stalking. They think whoever it was who found me probably scared the stalker away before he could do anything. That's good. But I'm sure those stooges will find out about this. Then they'll start up again with all their questions. Hana-chan, said Aika, who looked hesitant to continue. What is it? Don't think I'm crazy, but before I passed out, I thought I saw Shizuko. Not you too, said Hana, who looked more than a bit upset with another tale of the girl coming back from the grave. Look. I don't know what to tell you, but you did not see Shizuko. Maybe you're overstressed. I don't know, but Shizuko is dead. Maybe Sayuri was right, added Aika. Am I the only sane one here? Shizuko's dead. Nami killed herself. You were so scared that you hallucinated, and Sayuri is completely out of her mind. She's put this idea into your head that Shizuko is trying to get revenge. Don't you think that if there really was a ghost, I would have seen her too? I was there when Shizuko died. So why hasn't this so-called ghost of yours made herself known to me, huh? Can you explain that? But I saw her. Stop it, exclaimed Hana. Just stop it. If you don't stop claiming that you can see dead people, then I won't be your friend. I won't have any trouble finding new friends who don't claim to see dead people. Understand? Sorry, said Aika. Whatever you do, don't tell Sayuri about what you saw, said Hana. It'll only make her think about doing something stupid. Aika felt good enough to go back to school the next day. Only Hana knew of what had happened to her, and under her strict order, it would stay that way. As she sat at her desk and waited for class to begin, one of Aika's classmates asked her a question she had been hoping not to hear. Hey, Aika, where were you yesterday? Asked the girl. Were you sick or something? Turning to Hana, Aika was given a cold stare. I came down with a fever, replied Aika, so I decided to stay home. Well, don't give me what you had. I don't want to get sick. When Sayuri arrived, she immediately went to Aika. Aika-chan, she said, coming at her friend from behind. Hearing a voice so close to her startled Aika badly. Sorry about that. Are you free to talk? I have something I want to tell you. Hana came over to break up the conversation. Hey, Aika-chan, come with me, she said. I have something I want to show you. Never one to disobey Hana, Aika complied with her request. Sorry, Sayuri-chan, she said. I'm a little busy right now. Maybe we'll talk later. Going only as far as the hallway, Hana told Aika what was on her mind. I don't think we should be friends with Sayuri anymore, she said. She's just not the same person she used to be. We shouldn't have any more contact with her. Aika was able to look through the doorway at Sayuri. She was seated at her desk and looked like she didn't have a friend in the world. But Sayuri's our friend. No, she used to be our friend. Understand? Yeah, replied Aika. She then took another peek at Sayuri, and when she did, she found Shizuko standing behind her. Aika's eyes began to bulge. Don't feel too bad for her, said Hana, who was oblivious to Aika's horror. She'll find new friends. As for us, I think we should start hanging out with some of the girls on the swim team. I hear lots of their fathers own businesses. Shizuko reached her hand slowly toward Sayuri's shoulder. Sayuri-chan, exclaimed Aika, capturing not only Sayuri's attention, but the attention of everyone in the classroom, as well as in the hall. As if she had never been there, Shizuko was nowhere to be found. What's wrong with you? Asked Hana, pulling Aika away from the door so that Sayuri could no longer see her. She then forcefully led her to an unpopulated area of the hallway. Why did you do that? Do you still want to be friends with her? Is that it? You would choose her over me? After all that I've done for you? It's because of me that we're still free. Don't you ever forget that. Do you understand me? But... No more discussing this, said Hana. Don't you see that she's a bad influence? She's putting all these ideas in your head. Look at yourself. You look like you're crazy. She's got you thinking you're seeing ghosts. I don't care if I have to start watching you like a hawk. I'm going to make sure you stay away from that damn girl. When school was over, Hana led Aika out by the arm. Sayuri caught up with them as they were making their way through the front gate. Aika-chan, exclaimed Sayuri, rushing to her. Wait. Aika doesn't have anything to say to you, said Hana. But I need to talk to her. It's important. Leave us alone, shouted Hana. Can't you tell that we don't want to be friends with you anymore? Why can't you leave us alone, you freak? Go tell your crazy stories to someone who gives a damn. Thanks to what you've been telling Aika, now she's just as crazy as you are. Now I have to look after her like she's a child. You think I like having to do that? I hate it. So just stay the hell away from us. And with that, Hana angrily led Aika off the school grounds. As the two were leaving, Aika looked back at Sayuri. The look on her face made her look as if she desperately wanted Sayuri's help. When Hana and Aika made it downtown, Hana let go of her friend and turned her back on her. Look, about what I said back there, said Hana. I didn't mean it. I was just mad. I didn't mean to say those things about you. It's okay, replied Aika. The truth is, I don't think of you as a burden at all. You're my closest friend. I never felt this way about Nami, and I never felt this way about Sayuri either. I need you, Aika-chan. If anything were to happen to you, then how would I explain to the police? 2 of their prime suspects dying. How guilty would that make me look? Hana's false sentiment had fallen upon deaf ears, as Aika's full attention had been captured by something else. Through a nearby store window, she could see Shizuko watching her. In the blink of an eye, Shizuko had gone from being behind the store window to being directly behind Hana. In the blink of another, Shizuko was gone. What's wrong with you now? Asked Hana. Were you listening to me? Did you even hear a word I said? Where is she? Whispered Aika. What are you talking about? Before Hana knew it, Shizuko was standing directly behind Aika. You, whispered Hana, her eyes bulging and her heart pounding like mad. Hey, Aika-chan, said Shizuko. Don't turn around. And with that, she placed her hand on Aika's shoulder. When Aika began her turn, she realized she had backed into the road. By then, it was far too late for her to get out of the way of the speeding truck, barreling toward her. Chapter 8. Needing badly some time to gather herself, Hana took a week off from school. Her parents were adamant that she not be bothered by anyone while she recovered from the shock of what she had seen. Not even the detectives were allowed to talk to her. When Hana had finally deemed herself ready to get back to the outside world, Detectives Yamamoto and Tamaki paid a visit to her at school. Getting her alone in an empty office, the detective went about their business. Unlike the other interviews she had given, Hana was far less sure of herself. The smug girl had been replaced by someone who looked lethargic and desperate to be done with the newest situation in which she found herself. Sorry that we have to meet again under these circumstances, said Detective Tamaki. But if you have any information to give us, we would appreciate it. I didn't spend this much time at school, even when I was a student, said Detective Yamamoto. So, what happened this time? I don't know, replied Hana. I don't know anything. Witnesses say they saw you talking to the victim right before she walked into the road. Did you say something to upset her? I didn't tell her anything, replied Hana. She didn't walk into the road by accident, said Yamamoto. It's time for you to start telling us the truth. Look at yourself. You look like someone's coming to get you. Yamamoto then pulled out a cigarette and lit it. It wasn't just the fact that he wanted a cigarette. The tactic was to give Hana time to think about what had just been said. I've seen many people in your situation. It usually doesn't take them long to crack. I don't have anything to tell you, said Hana, who was trying to be defiant, but was far less convincing than in other meetings with the detectives. People kill themselves all the time. That doesn't give you the right to start bullying people. 2 of your friends committed suicide recently, said Yamamoto, and they were both persons of interest in a suspicious death. That can't be a coincidence. Hana, if you know something, we can let the court know that you cooperated with us, said Tamaki. They'll go easy on you because you're a minor, and you have a clean record. This doesn't have to be the end for you. Why are you talking such nonsense? Asked Hana. You want me to confess to something I didn't do? So 2 of my friends killed themselves. Everyone has their reasons. Like a jilted lover? Asked Yamamoto. Where's your clever story this time? I don't have to take this, exclaimed Hana. When I get home tonight, I'm going to tell my father to sue you both for everything you're worth. After the interview was over, Hana went to the bathroom to splash some cold water on her face. Her hands trembled badly as she lifted them to her face. In the mirror, Hana found she wasn't the only one casting a reflection. Standing behind her was Shizuko. Able to do little more than shut her eyes and shake noticeably, Hana awaited the same fate that had befallen both Nami and Aika. What do you want from me? Asked Hana, who had begun to shed tears. I didn't do anything to you. It was all Nami and Aika's idea. I was just with them when they did it. You can't blame me. Sayuri's to blame too. I tried to put a stop to what was happening, but she wouldn't let me. Hey, Hana-chan, said Shizuko, placing her hand on Hana's shoulder. Don't turn around. Unlike when Shizuko had done it to Nami and Aika, Hana refused to turn around. She remained in her frightened position until the door to the bathroom opened. In entered 2 girls, talking loudly. Oh, Hana-chan, said one of them. How are you doing? Timidly opening her eyes and looking into the mirror, Hana discovered Shizuko was no longer behind her. She spun around and found the girl who had come to claim her life was nowhere to be found. Paying no attention to the girls who had just entered, Hana rushed out. The gloomy demeanor that had been so evident in Hana was nowhere to be found during the course of the day. She seemed like a completely different person. The secret behind her miraculous change of character was that she believed herself to be immune from Shizuko's wrath. Having survived an encounter with the vengeful spirit, Hana was sure there was nothing left for her to fear, as she had come to realize that refusing to turn around left Shizuko with no way to take her to the great oblivion. On the walk home from school, Hana found Shizuko watching her from across the street. The act that would have terrified most did nothing to frighten Hana. So sure of herself was Hana that she flashed a grin at her ghostly nemesis and continued on her way. Chapter 9. With a recent week of school missed, Hana was put far behind in her studies. She was unable to partake in any festive activities after school, and instead spent her nights locked away in her room, catching up on assignments. On this night, Hana had worked herself to near exhaustion. At her desk, she could barely keep her eyes open, but she was shaken from her lethargic state when a floorboard behind her creaked. Hana knew immediately who the visitor to her room was. She knew that Shizuko had come to make another attempt on her life. Come to finish what you started? Asked Hana. You shouldn't bother. I know all about you now. You can't do anything to me if I don't turn around, can you? The lack of an answer was more than enough of a reply for Hana. Just as I thought, said Hana. You should have known I wasn't as stupid as the others. If only you had come after me first, then you might have succeeded. But I learned from the mistakes the others made. Hey, why don't you go after Sayuri instead? She's been on edge lately. I bet you won't have any trouble finishing her off." Hana then began laughing. "It was all my idea to lure you up there. The others had nothing to do with it, but they didn't try to stop me. Because people are afraid of me, just like you should be." Shizuko reached her hand toward Hana's shoulder, but pulled it back. "Nothing to say. That's what I thought. Why don't you do me a favor and go back to hell where you belong? There's nothing you can do." Shizuko faded back into the darkness. The next few days went by without any incidents. There were no sightings of Shizuko, nor were there any signs that she was present. It seemed the whole matter had finally been laid to rest. But on Hana's walk home from school one day, she would find out the hard way that an angry spirit never just went away. Waiting to cross the street, Hana found herself suddenly feeling a familiar presence behind her. There were others around, leaving her unable to make any crude remarks without looking somewhat disturbed. Doing her best to ignore Shizuko, Hana waited impatiently for the light to turn green. A hand clutching her by the shoulder startled Hana, but she remained calm. The calm was short-lived, though, as Hana was then pushed off the curb and into the road. She had been pushed with enough force to send her falling. A speeding truck slammed on the brakes, but there was no way it would be able to stop in time. Fortunately for Hana, she hadn't been pushed very far from the curb, making it possible for a man waiting to cross the street to pull her back to safety. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Why did you jump into the street? Are you trying to kill yourself?" "You bitch!" exclaimed Hana, completely ignoring the man who had just saved her life. "You can't do that! You can't change the rules!" She then began looking for the source of her frustration, but all Hana found was a crowd of curious onlookers. Realizing how strange she was making herself look, Hana sprinted away. The so-called changing of the rules did not end with that single act. For days, Hana was subjected to numerous random shoves by Shizuko. Most of them came at school, where Hana was made to look quite foolish in front of all her peers. For no reason at all, it seemed, she would nearly fall down the stairs, fall while running during PE, or fall in the middle of the hallway, while there was no one near her to cause such an accident. The students at school were all entertained by Hana's recent string of clumsy behavior, but Sayuri felt far different about what she witnessed. She was able to see Shizuko while she was pushing Hana to the floor. Though Hana could no longer be considered a friend, Sayuri felt she had to do something to help her. "Hana," said Sayuri, catching her one-time friend in the hallway. "What do you want?" asked Hana, not bothering to turn around. "I know that it's Shizuko that's been doing these things to you." "Oh, so that's what you want to talk about," said Hana, before spinning around to direct her glare at Sayuri. "You came to rub it in, didn't you?" "No, I didn't. I just wanted—" Hana cut off Sayuri before she could finish what she was saying. "Did you think I needed your help?" she asked. "Well, I don't. Even if I did, there's nothing you can do. Just because she won't hurt you doesn't mean you can do anything to help me. You think if you ask her to stop, she will? Of course not. She's not going to stop until I'm dead." The anger that had been so evident on Hana's face quickly gave way to sorrow. "I didn't do anything to deserve this. I just wanted to scare her. If you let me help you, I'm sure we can figure something out." The grief that had overtaken Hana was quickly replaced by anger. "You did this to me, didn't you?" she asked. "What?" asked Sayuri. "You told her to do this to me and the others. It's because you were friends. That's why she won't hurt you." That's not true. You probably go home at night and laugh at me behind my back. You wanted one last chance to rub this in my face before that bitch finishes me off. You thought I wouldn't figure it out, but I'm too smart not to see through your act. No, you're wrong, said Sayuri. I know how to put an end to this, said Hana. You didn't think I'd be able to figure it out, but there are people who specialize in this sort of thing. She then made her way past Sayuri, bumping into her roughly with her shoulder. Don't get in my way again. Hana had rushed to a local psychic after school. Most of the girls at school knew of the woman, as she was sought by young ladies who wanted to know what kind of boy they would soon start dating. Though many times her predictions proved to be quite wrong, she remained a sign of hope for those who had little left. So sure was Hana that her idea would work that the smug demeanor that was so familiar to her returned once she entered the woman's establishment. Hana sat across from the shriveled old woman at a small table and listened intently. So, you say the ghost of your dead friend has come back to seek revenge? Asked the old woman. What did you do to her that caused her demise? Who said I had anything to do with it? Asked Hana. She died all on her own, and I never said she was my friend. A spirit that comes back for revenge always has a good reason. I didn't come here to be accused of something I didn't do, exclaimed Hana. Now tell me how to get rid of this thing, or I'll go to someone else. You must return to the place where the girl's spirit left her physical body, said the old woman. For that is where her vengeance was born into this world. It is there where you must destroy something of hers that will take the place of her once physical self. Is that all it will take? Asked Hana. Are you sure? That is all you need to do. If you don't believe me, you're free to go somewhere else. But I've seen this work many times before. I have a picture she owned, said Hana. Will that work? It will work just fine. Take the picture to where your troubles began and destroy it. Once you have destroyed your chosen object, your troubles will be gone. I'm going to get that bitch, whispered Hana. Before she made her way to the beach, Hana called Sayuri and told her to meet her at the cliff where Shizuko had met her demise. She made sure to let Sayuri know that she was going to rid the world of Shizuko once and for all. The once clear sky had since become filled with ominous black clouds, and a fierce wind had begun to sweep across the beach. I don't think this is a good idea, said Sayuri, who stood at a distance from Hana, who was very near the edge of the cliff, just like Shizuko had been. Of course you would say that, said Hana. You don't want me to do anything to your precious Shizuko, but you can't do anything to stop me. Oh, Sayuri-chan, if only you hadn't told Shizuko to take revenge on us. We could have remained friends, but you had to betray me. Maybe you did it to save your own life. I really don't care. But for that, I had to make sure you never betrayed me again. What are you talking about? Before I called you, I sent a letter to the police. It tells them that they should look into the elementary school Shizuko used to attend. Then check what elementary school you went to. It won't be hard for them to realize the two of you used to know each other. That alone will make the police suspicious of you. As for me, I have no connection to her. I didn't even come to live in this city until junior high. Why would you do that? Asked Sayuri. Don't ask stupid questions. It's because you sent that bitch Shizuko after me like she was your attack dog. What made you think she wasn't going to do the same thing to me that she did to Nami and Aika? Asked Sayuri. I was there when she died too. I'm just as guilty. Stop talking to me like I don't know what's going on, said Hana, pulling out the picture Sayuri had drawn all those years ago. She then produced a lighter. You two have been working together from the very start. You tried to stop us from bullying Shizuko, and now you want us to die for what we did. How can you think that? Why would I have wanted any of this to happen? Nami and Aika were my friends too. I never wanted them to die. How should I know why you wanted this to happen? Maybe it's because you're crazy. Hana then held the picture up. Where are you now, Shizuko, huh? Now that you know the end is near, you hide? That doesn't sound like much of a ghost to me. Please stop this. Shut up, shouted Hana. I'm going to prove to you that no one messes with me. I don't care if they're living or dead. And with that, Hana lit the picture on fire. She held on to it until there was barely anything left, then let it go, where it danced on the whipping wind before it burned away to nothing. It's over. I hope you're proud of yourself, said Sayuri. Of course I'm proud of myself, said Hana. Why shouldn't I be? I haven't a care in the world. She then looked to the gloomy sky above. Maybe I'll visit you in prison sometime. How does that sound? Afraid to look at me when you say those things? Asked Sayuri. I'm not afraid of anything, said Hana, before turning around. The cheer died quickly when Hana found Shizuko standing behind her. How? Shizuko took Hana in a tight embrace and jumped off the cliff. Like Shizuko had done before her, Hana slammed into the jagged rocks below. With much trepidation in each step, Sayuri made her way to the edge of the cliff. Lying in a mangled mess upon the jagged rocks below was Hana. Even in death, her eyes were casting a vicious glare at Sayuri. Chapter 10. After returning home, Sayuri locked herself in her room and turned off all the lights. She had a very strong feeling that she would be receiving a visit soon, now that 3 of the 4 girls responsible for Shizuko's death had been dealt with. As she had been anticipating, Sayuri began to sense a presence behind her. It was the moment she had been fearing. But at the same time, Sayuri was eager to get the moment over with, as the waiting had been wearing her down. Sayuri's heart began to race, and her breathing became sporadic. Still, Sayuri knew she had to fight her fear and confront her departed friend. Shizuko-chan, said Sayuri, her voice barely louder than a whisper. I know that's you, and I know why you're here. Tears immediately began to fill Sayuri's eyes. If it appeases your anger, then take me like you took the others. I'm just as much to blame for what happened to you as they were. I knew something was going to happen that day, but I didn't know things would go that far. Still, I shouldn't have been so afraid that I couldn't stop them. The presence behind Sayuri was growing nearer. All I've been able to think about these last few days was how good of a friend you were, said Sayuri. How, if you had been put in the position I had been in, you never would have let anyone do anything to hurt me. Shizuko's hand was slowly nearing Sayuri's shoulder. You deserved a better friend than me, said Sayuri, prompting Shizuko to pull her hand back. Why couldn't I have been as good as you? Shizuko lowered her head as if she was feeling some sort of shame for what she had been preparing to do to the only real friend she ever had. I'll never forget how we used to draw pictures of what we wanted to be when we grew up, said Sayuri. We weren't afraid to tell each other our dreams. Remember the picture you drew where you were a nurse? You would have made such a good one. But we took that away from you. Not only did we hurt you, but we hurt all the people you were going to help. I never could have shared my dreams with those girls. They weren't kind like you. But that kindness led you to believe that everyone was kind, and that's why you died. Once again, Shizuko reached her hand toward Sayuri. Do it, Shizuko-chan, said Sayuri. Do it before I become one of those people. who lives only to bring pain and sadness to others. Gently, a hand came to rest on Sayuri's shoulder. When she spun around, all Sayuri found was a piece of paper slowly falling to the floor. Picking it up, Sayuri discovered it was the picture she had drawn that was thought to have been destroyed by Hana. "Shizuko-chan," said Sayuri, her eyes stinging shut with tears. "I'm sorry." The police had been notified of Hana's body lying mangled upon the rocks. Detectives Yamamoto and Tamaki were in charge of the investigation, as there was no doubt that Hana's death was directly linked to the deaths of her friends. "Looks like we've only got one left," said Tamaki. "Do you think this has to do with the letter she sent us? Maybe she told her friend what she did, and this was the price she paid for letting her secret slip." "That letter didn't tell us anything we didn't already know," said Yamamoto. "We knew early into our investigation that the victim went to the same elementary school as one of our suspects, but she didn't seem like the type who would do something like this. We'll have to have a talk with her. It seems obvious now that she was the one behind the other deaths. It's always the ones you least expect, isn't it?" "Maybe," said Yamamoto. He then took a long drag on his cigarette and began pondering the bizarre situation. Then again, Yamamoto looked over the edge of the cliff and at Hana, whose glare even in death sent a chill down his spine. Is it really over? Or did someone just create a new monster? Sayuri left her house early the next morning to visit Shizuko's grave before school. She had brought with her a single white lily, which she placed at the foot of Shizuko's grave marker. Placing her hands together, Sayuri prayed for her friend. "Shizuko, may your soul finally be able to find peace," she said. Thinking of the friendship and pleasant moments she had shared with Shizuko, rather than the events that led to her demise, Sayuri was able to produce a smile. Checking her watch, Sayuri realized that she would have to hurry if she wanted to get to school before they closed the front gate. As she began her departure, a bitterly cold wind swept through the cemetery, stopping Sayuri dead in her tracks. Something about her immediate surroundings suddenly felt wrong to Sayuri. The feeling grew to a frightening level when she realized someone was now standing behind her. "Hey, Sayuri-chan," said a voice that sent a chill down Sayuri's spine. It was a voice she knew well, a voice that had always frightened her. And it wasn't before long when a hand came to a rest upon her shoulder. "Don't turn around." *Salu, Cure the World, the End.